What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Week 14 Sunday morning question and answer show. I'm your host, Ben Hostler. I am here solo today. Anthony is Anthony is at his wife's baby shower. Sam is at a graduation, I believe. So I am here solo. You guys can start dropping in some questions. I'll talk about the slate a little bit, and then we'll just try and answer as many questions as we can. We'll just go rapid fire, answering all the questions. This is a pretty fun slate. I think a lot has changed since like earlier week. We've had a lot of obviously injuries and news. Like McKissick being out, I think is like that's a big piece of news that we didn't know a few days ago. Obviously, Mike Williams is in, and then some other stuff as well, which we'll talk about, and I'm sure we'll get some questions about. Kevin, good morning. What's up, Scott? Good morning, Mike. Good morning. Straight up picks: Niners or Bengals, Browns or Ravens. I mean, I cannot. It's really tough for me to pick the Browns at this point. But I don't know. I think that game is like a coin flip. Niners, Bengals. I think I'd take the Niners, but that game's really close as well. Scott, DraftKings, Cash, CD, or Godwin. I think it depends on your lineup. If you're playing more pieces of the Tampa game, play Godwin. If you're playing Dak, play CD Lamb. The Cowboys in general are like a team that's kind of risen up my ranks personally throughout the weekend here. Once we got that news, obviously, like they're already down Chase Young, Montez Sweat is out. It's just a really good spot for the Cowboys offense. They're fully healthy, finally got everyone back in terms of like their weapons. Obviously, Pollard is not going to play, but Dak has all his receivers. The line is intact, so I do think it's a good spot for the Cowboys offense. Favorite Fanduel quarterback for tournaments. Um, it might be Dak, honestly, because I think Dak is going to be like significantly more owned on DraftKings, where he's 6,700. He's actually appropriately priced on FanDuel, and like I said, I've really come on to the Cowboys in general, so it might be Dak, but there's a few good spots. I mean, Lamar. Anytime you can get Lamar low owned, I think it's a good move to at least have some exposure there. And then obviously really good spot for Josh Allen as well this week, but it might be Dak, to be honest. Let's be honest, Anthony's in Vegas at the table. Sam is drunk from last night. Uh, the second part of that probably true. Sam probably is still drunk from last night. Anthony, the only reason I know he's at his wife's baby shower is because he sent a picture this morning of it and said he couldn't believe that he's there on Sunday. So that I believe. Sam definitely probably drunk from last night. Cole or Palmer for Fanduel Cash. I would take Palmer there for sure. If I had to pick between the two, Zeke or Mixon in DK tournaments. Oh man, that's a tough one. I think they project similarly, but I would probably take Zeke. I mean, no Pollard there to steal work. Like I said, the line it's a really big mismatch of the Dallas offensive line versus the Washington defensive line at this current state. And even though I like Dak, I like the aerial attack here. Like it wouldn't shock me if they come out and they're just pounding Zeke. Like it wouldn't shock me. It's a definite possibility. So if I was picking between those two, I would take Zeke this week. Sloaner, what's up? DraftKings Cash 2v2 Crowder and Panthers D or Jeff Wilson and Seahawks D. That's really close. I don't like to play 2v2s with defense just because it's so random, but I think I would take the first one. I actually like Panthers D more than Seahawks D uh, this week. I think that like Atlanta has really struggled when they've played like actual good defenses, and I think the Panthers defense is good. And they're at home and they're a little bit cheaper. So, and I think Crowder is a really good play. Jeff Wilson, I see a couple questions about him. Am I trusting him? I think he's fine. Like he came out in that last game that he started, he got 20 touches. Wasn't super efficient with them, but it was a weird game. The 49ers just absolutely rocked the Jaguars that game. They didn't need him to like catch any passes, and then Jimmy missed him on like a wide open touchdown. So even if he scores that touchdown on DraftKings, it's another 7 points. So I think we would probably be talking a little bit differently about him, but he is like banged up. I know last week like he was kind of limited because of that injury, but he's so cheap. So I think if you love your lineup and you have Jeff Wilson in there, I think he's fine for cash games. I don't really think I want to play him in tournaments, especially with Debo back. Like I would be more inclined to try and get Debo in tournaments if I want some San Fran exposure. But I think for cash games, if you really like your lineup and you have Jeff Wilson in there, he's fine. Taysom and Cash. I'm not playing Taysom. I know he's going to be chalky, but just too many things can go wrong there. Like I think it's too easy to get up to one of the other quarterbacks. So I'm just going to spend up. I don't think Taysom's a bad play, and I think he's going to be the highest on quarterback, but I'm just personally not playing him at this point. Am I locking Eckler and Gibson? Gibson, I think, is a lock now with McKissick out for sure. So I think he's probably the only must play for me at running back at this point. Outside of him, I think Eckler, Leonard Fournette, Josh Jacobs, Zeke as well. I think you could put all those guys in the mix for cash, and you're kind of picking. I don't think you need to play 3 running backs this week. I think you could play 4 receivers if you want, but that's kind of the pool I would be picking from. Jeff Wilson as well for value, but I think Gibson's the only must play at running back. I think Eckler versus Lenny is a really interesting conversation because I think Eckler's obviously going to project for more points, but I think just in a vacuum, like Lenny basically is Eckler for $1,000 less on DraftKings because he's getting. I mean, he's been super involved in the passing game the last few weeks. He's been really involved in like the red zone, and when they get down close, like they've actually been giving him the ball, and I think he leads the league in catches right now out of the backfield. So I think you're getting Eckler for a little bit cheaper by playing Fournette. The problem is like the matchup is just worse. Buffalo is like a legit good defense. Tampa has not played any. I don't really know if Tampa's played one actually good defense the whole season, outside of maybe like 1 week. So I always kind of have that concern. But I don't know. I like Lenny a lot, and I think he's just the same play as Eckler for a little bit less. Taysom Kamara, okay tandem for DraftKings. Yeah, I think it's fine to play those guys together. I don't have any problem with that. Fanduel Cash, would you come off Gibson or Fournette to try to get up to Eckler? And then there's another question about Eckler and Fanduel at that price. I think it's kind of the same situation. I don't think Eckler is a must on DraftKings, so he's not going to be a must for me on Fanduel just because it's half point PPR. And I think that, like I said, I think Fournette is just the same role as Eckler at the moment. So I just slightly lean towards him, but it's close, and I like both of them. Like I think you could realistically play Gibson, Eckler, and Fournette all together if you want to. It's just like especially if you play Taysom at quarterback, you can definitely do that. It's an interesting conversation. Valdez Scantling or Jalen Guyton for full PPR. Oh man. I might take MVS. I just don't. I don't know, man. They still have Eckler. They still have Mike Williams. They still have the tight ends, and it's really not that great of a matchup. So I think if I was picking one of those guys, I would probably take MVS. Wide receiver under 4,000 run. I would say Pringle. You can go all the way down to Pringle, who's probably my favorite. Um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, you could take a shot on Donovan Peoples-Jones, I think, in like a larger field tournament. But I think if you have to pick one receiver below 4K, I think Pringle is my favorite. Wide receivers in cash this week on DraftKings. Yeah, I think it's kind of similar to running back. There's a lot of guys you can use. I think you're probably like in terms of must play, Mike Williams is like the only must play in my opinion. And then you have spend up guys like Tyreek and Diggs. Like Tyreek is not going to be high owned, which I think is like really interesting. And then in the mid tier you have Williams, who I just mentioned. You have Hunter Renfrow and Jarvis Landry, who I think are really strong plays. And then you have Jamison Crowder, who's under 5K, who I think is a really strong play as well. Hooper or RSJ for cash on DraftKings, I would take Hooper between those two. I don't trust RSJ. I think they like Bates like a lot, and I think that Bates is going to be involved. So I don't think we're going to see the RSJ usage that we saw when Thomas first went down earlier in the year. Yeah, I think they legitimately like Bates, so I think he's going to get in the game. Is Crowder the cheapest wide receiver in cash? Probably for me, but like I said, if you want to get really weird, I really think you can use Pringle, but that's kind of thin for cash. Um, so yeah, Crowder is probably the cheapest. Hilliard versus Gibson, it's Gibson. It's not even close in my opinion with McKissick out. Sierra man, what's up? Thoughts on Kamara? I think Kamara's a good play. I think he's going to be lower owned than Gibson, Eckler, Lenny, Zeke, um, Josh Jacobs. I think he's probably lower owned than all those guys, which is certainly interesting, especially with the Ingram out. I think people are just worried that Taysom will still work, but the Saints could be more inclined to not run Taysom as much because of his injury he sustained last week. I don't know, but I do think Kamara is one of the better tournament plays on the slate. I think it's very interesting when you can get him at low ownership, especially when there's no just must play running back. This is a good tournament play. Gibson, Dak, and CD, or Herbert, Williams, and Saquon for tournaments. I would probably take the first one, but if you're gonna play, like, I think the cashy route would be to play Dak and Gibson. So I think if you're playing tournaments, I would want to get Terry McLaurin in there. I think it's a really good spot for him. Like Trayvon Diggs has a lot of picks this year, but in terms of his actual coverage, like he's actually graded out as one of the worst corners in football, particularly against the deep ball, which is kind of what McLaurin does. I mean, you're banking on Heineke getting him the ball, but I actually think it's a really good spot for McLaurin, and he's kind of like got loose against Diggs before in their past games. So I think if I was stacking Dak in tournaments, I would want Terry on the other side, just because Gibson's going to be so high on the majority of people playing Dak stacks are going to have Gibson, I think. Zeke or Javante for Fanduel cash. I mean, if we had if Gordon was out, like we would all be playing Javante, but I think it's probably Zeke. And Zeke's especially better on Fanduel just because it's so touchdown dependent. He definitely can score 2 touchdowns today. It would not shock me if that happens. Jonathan, is Godwin going off again? Godwin goes off like every week, I feel like. So he definitely probably could, especially with AB. It is his toughest matchup he's had all year, I think. But um, Yeah, I think Godwin's a good play. CJ, CJ, what are you doing this week? We were playing that game like we were guessing what you do on Sundays. So yeah, let me know what you're doing. Dak and Lenny or Taysom and Eckler. I mean, that's really tough. I think it's probably the first one for me, but it's very close. Second one will probably be higher owned. Rank Gibson, Barkley, Jacobs, and Zeke. I think as it currently stands, Barkley is probably last. I think it's probably Gibson, Jacobs, Zeke, Barkley in that order for me. Fred, I think that Javante and Cash, even if Gordon plays, that would be a late swap thing for me. So say I'm getting, say I'm behind the cash line going into the later games, and I got Mike Williams like in the flex or something, I could move him down to Javante. I have Fournette in the flex. I can move him down to Javante. Um, so that's more like of a late swap thing for cash for tournaments. I think he's a great play. I think you can play him confidently, but in cash games, I think that'd be more something I'm looking at to swap onto if I was behind. Ron, I think Coolio's a good play. I don't have any of him personally, but I mean it's a good matchup, and they just don't have much else to throw to at the moment. Like you feel like he would definitely get the attention of Tannehill, but I don't know. It's tough to trust him. Like the re-injury risk is definitely real, but I try not to worry about that. I think for tournaments he's a good play. He's gonna be low owned relative to some of those other guys in the mid tier. Jamar Jefferson, Gallup, Gage, or Guyton, pick two. I might take Gallup. I mean, it's tough for me to trust any Lions at this point. But I don't really like Guyton that much. It's between Gage and Jefferson. I might take Jefferson just because I just don't love that matchup for Atlanta. Gallup for sure. I think you're playing. Favorite Chiefs tight end this week, Mitchell. I think that's a good question. I think you have in terms of like guys that are gonna get ownership, Hooper, James O'Shaughnessy, Brock Wright is probably the three cheap guys. I think O'Shaughnessy is probably my favorite. Um, is probably my favorite cheap guy, but I think Hooper is gonna be like the chalk, to be honest. Just hook up with this girl. Oh, congrats on that, CJ. Her roommates say hi. Yeah, see, this is what I'm talking about. I'm gonna boost you to like uh, best person in chat. Thank you. That's what I'm talking about. Zeke, Connor, Sony Michelle, Cordero Patterson, pick two. Ooh, no, D Hendo again for the Rams. It's tough to fade Cordero like based off what he's been doing. I mean, this guy just goes off every week. But if it was my team, I would pick Zeke and Sony Michelle. I think Cook or Hooper, DraftKings Cash Matt. I would take. That's tough. I would probably take Hooper between those two, but Cook is in play. Definitely, I feel like Cook always scores, but I think you have to play Hooper for cash. Fournette and BMW or Godwin Jacobs for cash. I think you're taking the first one, Darren. Drew, I don't think that's too many for cash for Chargers. I think if you're playing Eckler and Williams, like it's smart to just play Herbert anyways. I don't think anyone's going to do that, but if you're playing them, might as well. Favorite defense on Fanduel? I mean, Seattle's going to be chalky. I like the Panthers though. I really think Panthers is my favorite defense this week, so I'm gonna stick with them. Yeah, it's a good spot for Hooper. I really can't poke many holes in it, especially with how thin they are at tight end. And I actually think that I think the Browns are going to come out and just throw the ball a lot. Um, so I really can't argue that. Mitchell, I don't think Eckler's a lock, but he's, I mean, the best projection at running back probably, him and Gibson. But kind of what I was saying, I think Fournette is like a very similar play to Eckler for less money. So I'm just more interested in him at this moment. Like the more I've thought about it. Favorite quarterback for a small field tournament? It's probably Dak still. Dak or Josh Allen. You don't need to get too weird with like your stacks in small field tournaments. I think you can play pretty chalky and just get a few low owned guys in there. But I've really come on to the Cowboys, so it's probably Dak. And I just want you guys to know like this never ends well. This is like when I play Brady. The Cowboys are just like the worst team to like bet on or play. Like they're just so tilting. So I know this is just gonna like it's gonna be 2:30, and I'm just gonna like hate my life for playing Cowboys, but that's kind of what it's come down to. Kevin, if you have money left over, I would upgrade Guyton over Hooper. I think Hooper's still fine on FanDuel, so keep him in there, and you can move Guyton up a little bit. Jonathan, I think Knox is fine if you're stacking Josh Allen. I wouldn't play him as a one-off, but it's always good to use your tight ends in your stacks, or like as a run back. So if you want to play Josh Allen, Diggs, and then use Knox, I think that's a good stack. Ron, I would not play Hilliard in cash personally. I think that's more of a tournament play. I think there's too many good mid-tier running backs. I mean, I would use Javante over him in cash. You have Jeff Wilson Jr. for cheap if you want to use someone cheap in cash. Fournette, Gibson, Eckler, Zeke, like Josh Jacobs. That's a pretty big. That's a bigger than usual running back list. Tight end streaming options with Waller out for standard. I mean, if Hooper's not, Hooper's probably the number one, like in terms of somebody you could pick up. But if somebody has him, I don't know, probably O'Shaughnessy. But if you have like if you can use Foster Moreau, I think that's still fine. Like he still played a lot last week. He got targets. Um, Carr likes to throw the middle of the field, so I still think I think he's the same play that he was last week, like in terms of DFS. So for season long, I think you can use him if you need to. Senior man, I like CeeDee Lamb the most. Gallup versus Amari is a conversation. I think I would lean Amari, but it's close. And I think you can use all three. But CD definitely my favorite, and Amari probably number two. Jonathan, Kamara, Godwin, or Chase, is that cash or tournaments? I won't answer that. Will Debo have a snap count? I think if Debo plays, then he's gonna get like pretty close to his normal work, and that's not someone we haven't talked about. But I think he's a really really good tournament play. He's gonna get some carries, and I mean if he would have been active last week and had a good game, I think he'd be much higher owned than he's gonna be. He's projecting for like 5% owned right now. That's a really really strong tournament play. Someone I think you want to get some exposure to. Tournaments for that question, I would take as like a strict one off. I think that conversation's between Kamara and Chase. Chase is due for a big game. I like him as a home dog. Um, I mean, he dropped like that was a wide open touchdown last week that he just dropped. But man, Kamara at low ownership is interesting. I think it's between those two. I would probably lean. I would probably lean Kamara gun to head, but it's very close. Tyreek or Debo? I think it's still Tyreek, but both are really good tournament plays. I think like coming into the week, Tyreek was gonna be really high owned. I think he's gonna end up at like 10, 11%, which is just too low. Like the Chiefs are gonna absolutely dominate today. So he's such a good play. Favorite bet? This is a weird week for betting. I think I like Denver and I actually like the Giants a little bit, but I think Denver just seems like a lock bet. But I mean it's Denver, so could definitely go poorly. Play mostly ESPN. Do you mind explaining? Okay, so DFS, like obviously that's daily fantasy compared to your season long. GPP is a tournament, so that's like the larger field stuff where you can win more money. Cash games is like 50-50s, double ups, head to heads, stuff like that, where you're just looking to double your money. CJ, yeah, I think Brock Wright's fine in cash. I had him for a good chunk of the week. I think he's fine. But you know around here we love to play cheap tight ends, so this is always fine. And I actually think he's decent. I mean, his athletic stuff looks good. Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming he's going to get some targets. I don't really know like who they're going to throw to. So yeah, Jonathan Evans is not going to be owned at all. Um, I like Godwin more, but I mean, if you're gonna if you're stacking that game or like if you're gonna play a buck stack, it's fine to use Mike Evans. It's just like for cash games, you always lean Godwin because you really need Evans to score touchdowns. But for tournaments, when you catch him on those games that he finds the end zone, I mean, he normally can have a big game. Yeah, CJ, I think he was like upper 70s percentile 40-yard dash. Um, and I watched like some highlights. I don't know. He seemed like he could move around pretty good. So that's pretty much all I needed to hear too when you're talking about a cheap tight end. Jamar Jefferson, Tony, I think is maybe like a tournament shot. There's just too much going on at running back for me. I don't want to bet on the Lions. Like they still have that other guy that I cannot pronounce his name, but and they also could just come out and just throw the ball a little bit more with the running backs down. So I don't think I would want to use him like in cash. But if you're like making like a weird tournament lineup in the Millie Maker or something, you just throw Jefferson in there. You know, I think you can do that. Yeah, Evans is fine for a one-off. Lamb and Chiefs D or Mike Williams and Seahawks D. I think for cash, you're playing the second one. It's gonna be a lot higher owned. Matt, I think the second one will be actually I don't know. I would probably take the first one, but I don't Seattle D is gonna be really really chalky. But I don't mind fading that. Typically, I'm on the team of like I'm gonna play the chalk D in case they score. But for whatever reason, I don't know. I feel weird about Seahawks today. I like the Texans a little bit, so I think I'm fine. Mainly, but probably just because they're 3,100 on DraftKings. Like I don't know. I don't like spending that much on defense. Matt, I know Anthony's on Clyde Edwards-Helaire in tournaments. I think he's fine, but I think the ceiling's a little bit capped. relative to some of those other guys in that range. But if you're not playing any Chiefs and you want to just put him in there to get some exposure, I think that's fine. Underdog bet? Yeah, I mean, it's probably the Giants. But favorite loaned receiver? That's a tough one. I like a lot of the chalk at receiver. It's probably Debo, just because we got that news late and he's gonna be sub 10%. It's probably Debo. I'm gonna type my core plays, and now if you guys are subscribers, dfskamara.com/pricing. If you want access, you'll be able to see my cash game core plays and my tournament core plays. As soon as I type this in, yeah, we're riding the Cowboys today, boys. Hard for you to play Lenny over Eckler without. Yeah, I mean, dude, it's so close. I think it's a legit conversation. Very close. I think Eckler will probably be a little bit higher owned, but I don't know. I mean, it's just kind of like you got to kind of break that mental block of Lenny, just because. I mean, look, the last 4 weeks. I mean, his target totals are crazy. I mean, before the season, if you would have said it's week 14 and Leonard Fournette is leading the league in catches for running backs, like you just wouldn't have believed it. So, I just think that you're getting a similar role for less money, but there's no doubt that Eckler gets like a boost with Keenan out. 100% he does. The problem with me is like I'm gonna have Mike Williams, so it's like if I'm gonna play Eckler and Mike Williams, I feel like I would have to play Herbert at that point. Fade today. Who am I fading? That's a tough one. I don't know if there's anyone overly chalky that I want to fade. I don't think I had any. I didn't end up with any Kamara, which I feel pretty bad about. I don't have any Saquon, so maybe those guys. But I don't know. A lot of the chalk I like this week. I don't think I'm getting too weird. Have they decided between Gordon and Javonte? I mean, I think Gordon's probably going to be active, which I mean that makes us like Javonte more in tournaments. I don't understand how you can't like guess what these coaches do, but it's just tough for me to think Javonte did what he did last week and you just don't go back to him as the lead guy. So I think for tournaments he's a good play, but I do think Gordon is going to be active. Now, if we got some like late after, we got some 3 o'clock news that Gordon was going to be out, that would certainly change some things. That would make me like you would be getting on a Javonte at that point. He would be like the top play. So keep that in mind. But I think Javonte, good tournament play. Can't play him in cash with Gordon active, I think, just because, I mean, they could come out and just split it like they have been because they're stupid. Favorite cheap defense? I mean, cheap defense, probably, like, if you want an actual cheap one, I like the Texans at home a little bit. I can't believe I'm saying that, but, like, if you want to get weird, I think Texans, if you want an actual cheap one. But Panthers at 2,800 on DraftKings, in my opinion, is cheap, and that's my favorite one. Stay on for like another 5 minutes. If you guys have last minute questions, get them in. Didn't get really any crazy news this morning. It's really just that McKissick news last night, which I don't know, it was kind of trending that way yesterday. Troy, Fournette, and Judy or Jacobs, Big Mike for single entry on Fanduel. I would take this second one of those two. I can't believe like there's so many running backs in play, man. Like I was really not on Jacobs, but it's tough. It's tough not to play him. The current state of their offense. Fanduel Cash, Taysom, or Lamar. I mean, if you have the money to get to Lamar, I would play him, but I mean, it's probably Taysom and Cash. But I think like I think I like Josh Allen the most on Fanduel. But I mean, you can do some stuff with the savings, so it's probably Taysom. Jeff Wilson, yeah. I was talking about him earlier. I think he's fine in cash. Not someone I want to play in tournaments, I don't think. Especially fine on FanDuel cash just because he's so cheap. DraftKings, I think, like he's a little bit less in play just because you have Gibson at 6K, you have Jacobs at 62. I'd probably rather get up to those two guys, but I mean he's in play for sure. Can't believe you're playing Hooper. I know, dude. I started the week with 2 Browns in my cash lineup, Hooper and Landry, and I have ended the week with no Browns in my cash lineup. So could be good. Could be a good thing for us. Nick, I like Gibson more in general, I think, and I definitely like him more for cash. Yeah, I don't think Gibson's probably like one of the only must plays for me on this slate. Like it's just really tough to get away from him. With McKissick out. Bold call. What was my bold call? My bold call on the podcast was Zach Wilson throws 4 touchdowns, which is just absurd. So I'm gonna stick with that one, and then I'll add. I'll add Dak Prescott 5 touchdown passes today for another one. 3 weeks to prepare for the Ravens. No trust. Yeah, I have no trust in them either. If they can't pass the ball today against that secondary, there's just no excuses. Favorite cheap tight end on FanDuel. FanDuel, it's harder for me to spend down at tight end. It's probably Hooper if I'm going down on FanDuel, but like typically I want to get up to the mid tier or spend up. Favorite wide receiver besides Mike Williams. I like CD a lot. I like Renfro a lot. Probably those two as of right now. No, Nick James and Crowder's a good play for sure, especially with Elijah Moore out now. I think James and Crowder's a good play. Fournette or Jacobs for FanDuel cash. Man, that's probably Fournette. I feel a little bit safer with Fournette, but they're both certainly in play. I think you play them together. But if you're picking just one of those two, I would take Fournette. All right, thank you guys very much for watching. I appreciate it very much. I'll be back week 15 content throughout the week. Good time to sign up for the core plays. We get an hour till lock. dfscom.com/pricing if you want access to who I'm playing. Anthony, Bales, Sam. Matt's been on an absolute heater. It's going to be a good week. Fred, CD over Godwin cash. I think so, but it's close. But yeah, I think I like CD a little bit more. But good luck this week, guys. Hope you guys win your contests, and I'll be back in week 15.